When you think of freestyle or the improv portion of auditions, do you dread it or do you get super excited about it? I know a lot of dancers often don't love that piece of auditions. And so today we're going to talk about how you could start getting a little bit more comfortable in that situation, because during NFL or NBA auditions, you are most likely going to see some part of a freestyle piece, whether it's its own part or it's integrated into a routine that you're performing. And every team is completely different. So some of them will tack it onto the front or back of the routine that you're learning in the prelims, or during finals, you could go out in front of the judges and just perform 6 or 8 counts of a freestyle to any type of music. And I've seen and performed in both aspects, and they've been in the same audition. Getting comfortable with that piece of auditions will be super helpful for you, so you know exactly how to execute it when you're in auditions and not having to worry about that piece. And I want you to think differently between the improv or freestyle portion versus a solo. Oftentimes, it's normally in NFL that you will have an opportunity in finals to do a solo, and that's more of a hand-selected song, curated choreography that is something that you feel like you can execute, you learn it, and you perform it. Whereas freestyle or improv, this is a piece that is, again, part of the audition process, but it's not as choreographed. It can be, and we're going to talk about some of those pieces today, but it's a little bit more of the on the fly portion, because you're not necessarily going to have a hand-selected song that you get to do your freestyle to. And this freestyle and improv portion is really to show your personality, to also showcase your musicality and be able to perform quote unquote on the fly, where you aren't doing something that is that pre-choreographed, at least not to the extent that the choreo solo is. So here are my top 4 ways that you can start getting more comfortable with freestyle or improv. First, I want you to listen to your music. Oftentimes, as a judge, I've seen dancers who really love the jazz style and they want to showcase it, but they have a banger of a hip hop song and they just don't utilize it to its full potential. Sometimes it feels like you're forcing the choreography that you want to do or the style that you want to do in the song that you're given. If it's like a random song that's being played, making sure that you are listening to the music and executing it. You can still do some of your fun jazz pieces, but make sure that you're not like forcing a hip hop song to be a jazz song that you can execute exactly what you're wanting to do, and making sure that it blends nicely with the music that you're given versus dancing on top of the beats. So again, if you are wanting to do a jazz routine and you're just trying to force it to be that song, it's going to look mismatched, versus when you're listening to the music, then you are able to really dive into some of the beats and the backbeats and the textures that you wouldn't if you're just trying to do whatever you want to do, if you have pre-selected some of your favorite moves to do in your freestyle. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And the nice thing is, when it comes to music and musicality, is that you most likely will know the music. Use that to your advantage. Like, do you know that there's like a that in the song? Like, do a move to that versus just like passing by it. Or if there's an ooh in there, use that to your advantage, because it helps your freestyle. It shows style And it shows that you know musicality and that you're not just rushing through movement just to do it. Next, you want to practice it anytime you can. Whenever you have the opportunity to do freestyle, I want you to do it. And if you're taking a class or you're doing a performance workshop with us, whatever you're doing, I want you to fully take advantage of like those 2 8 counts that the choreographer or teacher is giving you in the beginning. If they said do freestyle, or even if they didn't, if nobody's doing freestyle around you, I still want you to commit to practicing your freestyle, because that is how you are going to get more comfortable with it. You don't want to show up to auditions and doing freestyle for 2 8 counts for the first time ever because they threw it in the beginning or the end of the routine, right? I want you to start practicing it now, getting comfortable with it now, figuring out while you're in front of a mirror what looks good on your body, what shapes and like movements can you make that are going to look good on you, that, hey, I can bring this to the table and be able to perform it with confidence. Because I know this is a piece that a lot of dancers feel like they don't excel in or that they lack confidence in. And the only way that you can get confident doing it is by actually doing it and doing it over and over and over again. And so while you are training, this is the perfect time to be adding that into your practice. And you're already taking classes, so you might as well just add it to the list of what you're already doing. Next, I touched on this before, but start playing with different combinations of your favorite moves, right? You can do like a roll up. There's a lot of movements that are similar in the pro industry and pro choreography. If you're taking pro choreography classes right now, you have seen them. You do a double turn, you put your head back, you slap the ground, and you roll up. Add that into your freestyle. You can do pieces and elements that you really enjoy or that you think look good on you and bring those to the table. And they're most likely going to fit with any music that you're given. Like we were talking about earlier, you have your jazz, you have your hip hop style. You can still do a double turn and do that. And maybe you do a little pump at the end of the move, right? To make it a little bit more hip hop. But you can still incorporate some of your favorite moves. That way you have something to go back on and fall back on. It allows you a little bit more comfortability to freestyle. And with freestyle, it doesn't have to be brand new on the fly every single time. I can tell when it's been choreographed and, like I said earlier, stuck into a song that it just doesn't fit. But that doesn't mean that you can't pull different pieces from something that you really love to do and make it work. That is the luxury of freestyle. It's being able to, again, go back to that musicality and say, what's coming up next in this music? It is most likely, again, going to be a popular song if you're doing just every person goes one at a time doing freestyle for 6, 8, 8 counts, that it's going to be a very popular song, right? You most likely have heard it. So how can you throw in these different moves that would work for any song? And then whether you're given a fun, sassy, flirty song or you're given a groovy song, then you can add those different elements into your freestyle while still having that base that you rely on. And then lastly, focusing on style and texture versus tricks. In my opinion, for NFL or NBA auditions, we don't necessarily want to see you do trick after trick after trick. I did a kick, and then I did a leg hold, and then I did an illusion, and then I don't go down the splits, and then I come up, and then I walk off. I want to see your music, your style, your performance, and entertainment, right? Again, we talk about this all the time. You are auditioning to be an entertainer. How can you draw the audience in? How can you have fun? So you can jump around, you can have fun, have a personality in your freestyle. Solos and freestyle can often be the judge's favorite part of the audition process because you get to showcase who you are, your personality, your skill set. We've had dancers who do Tahitian. We've had dancers who can do really cool different styles, and those get incorporated into their freestyle because it also gives a glimpse into who they are and their background. And so when you are doing your freestyle, focusing more on style and personality versus a bunch of tricks. You can add them in. It's great to see you can do a aerial or a back handspring, because I'll often make note like, oh, great, this person can do a trick. This person has tumbling experience, but it doesn't have to be the whole thing. Finding that balance between technique, tricks, and style and textures. And then lastly, on the tricks portion, making sure that if you have never done a kip up before, auditions is not the time that you try to make it work for your body. There's just too many variables, too much adrenaline. And if it's not something that you feel like you can execute to its full extent, then don't do it. I don't want to see 2 8 counts of Alice Cones, right? You should be making sure that you can do those fundamentals of the double turn, the kick, and the leap, right? That should be the foundation before you try to go and do all these other things that aren't necessarily in your wheelhouse. I would much rather see a dancer give me no technique, no tricks, and just like vibes, right? So that can be the thing that you fall back on for your freestyle if you don't have some of those things in your tool belt. We just had a virtual class the other day, and a lot of the dancers were just standing there prior to going into the movement. And I made note to myself, like, we have to talk about this because you are never going to get comfortable with it until you start doing it. And so no matter what class you are taking, no matter who you're around, virtual with us, in person with us, taking class from another teacher, I encourage you to practice your freestyle now, even if it's just shaking your palms if you have them, step clapping so you can figure out what you're doing next. Give me a little hip and a hip with your arms coming up. All of those things, it's just a little bit of movement, because that movement creates momentum. That movement creates energy. And then you're going to be even more energized when you go into that first move for the actual choreography, that it gives you an additional piece of momentum to be able to go full out in execution. It's like when you're pushing a ball up the hill, right? That first step is a little bit more difficult. Then actually when you start that momentum going, it makes it a lot easier. So making sure that you are practicing your freestyle, no matter where you're taking class, no matter what you're doing from now on, make a commitment to yourself that you are going to do freestyle during every opportunity. This was a super quick episode today. Reminder of everything that we went over. We are listening to our music. Musicality is such an important piece, not only in freestyle and improv, but in all of your dancing, and really focusing on musicality, practicing it at every opportunity. You're going to play with different combination of movements that you feel like look best on you and add those into your tool belt. And then lastly, focusing on style and textures and entertainment versus just giving tricks. I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have any questions on this or need any support to chat with you, feel free to DM me at the Cultivate code, and I will talk to you next week.